Welcome to Roger That, a podcast presented by HVAF of Indiana. I'm your host, Lauren Carpenter, and join me as we discuss how HVAF is ending veteran homelessness and how you can join us in our mission. We'll be having conversations with community partners, staff members, and even some of the veterans we serve. We hope sharing more of our story with supporters like you can shine a light and give a voice to this vulnerable population, because no hero should ever be homeless. All right, before we get started with this episode of Roger That, here are some stats we'd like to share to show how HVAF served Hoosier Heroes in Central Indiana last month. In September, we provided temporary housing for 85 veterans and provided rent and utility assistance for 213 veterans. And we provided essential items to 293 veterans through our food, hygiene, and clothing pantry. I'd like to point out that overall, we have seen a huge increase in our pantry visits this year, actually more than double. And even in these last few months, we've seen a big increase. In August, we had 224 veterans come through our pantry. So we saw 69 more veterans last month. And our pantry relies on the community's donations of food, clothing, and hygiene items so we can take care of our heroes. So if you'd like to ensure our pantry is stocked for our veterans in need, head to our website at hvaf.org and click on the tab Take Action. Our employment specialist provided services for 18 veterans through helping them update their resume, going through a mock interview, and even landing a new job. And so far this year, we have served 1,178 veterans. And we know we couldn't serve this many Hoosier Heroes without your support. So thank you for donating, volunteering, following us on social media, and listening to this podcast. To find out more about how we serve homeless and at-risk veterans, as well as their families, head to hvaf.org. I cannot believe that October is almost over, and actually November is next week. And with November coming up, that means that Veterans Day is almost here, and November 11th is a very special day for us for obvious reasons. So in honor of Veterans Day coming up, we want to be sure that we're taking time to recognize those on Team HVAF who have served our country. So on this episode of Roger That, you'll hear from veterans who are on our board of directors. And the next episode, you will hear from staff members who are also veterans. I had the honor of speaking with Army veteran and board chairman Arnie Peterson, Navy veteran and board secretary Ginger Barnes, Marine veteran and board member Rick Penny, and Army chaplain and board member Doug Hedrick. Here are their stories. Today on Roger That, I am joined by HVAF's board chair, Arnie Peterson. Arnie, how are you today?
I am doing well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Roger That, and sharing a little bit of your story with us.
Sure.
So you are a veteran yourself. And,
I am.
What branch of the military did you serve in?
I was in the United States Army.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your service.
You're welcome.
And whenever you first enlisted, how old were you, and what was the reason why you wanted to serve?
So I signed a contract in college with ROTC and got my commission in 1989, kind of aging myself a little there. And really for me, the reason was sort of twofold. One was God and country. And second, I became a third generation soldier and eventually a third generation combat veteran because I'm a Desert Storm veteran.
So did you always want to serve?
Actually, no. Believe it or not, when I first hit college, I wanted to get a finance degree and head to New York City and wanted to be one of those finance guys going back and forth across the pond. Yeah. About halfway through college, I've said, no, I really don't want to do that. I want to go in the Army. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Then you kind of could decide for yourself and decide that is what you wanted to do, not just because you thought you had to. Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're third generation. Could you share a little bit then about your dad and your grandpa serving as well?
Sure. My grandfather retired a commander in the United States Navy, and he fought in World War I, World War II, and Korea.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
He retired just before Korea. When Korea happened, he joined the Merchant Marine, and they gave him a ship and said, you captain that ship.
Wow.
Yeah. He was the big stud. Now, my dad is a Vietnam and Cold War veteran.
Okay.
So, yeah, and he's a retired colonel.
Wow. You must be proud then to call them your dad and grandfather.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be right behind them.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. So could you take us then a little bit through, when you then enlisted and kind of, what you did, where you went, all of that?
So after I graduated from college, I got my commission, and then I went down to Fort Knox for Armor Officer Basic. I was an armor officer on tanks. They called us the Jedi Warriors.
Nice.
So I was there at Knox. Then I went over to Germany in a little town called Erlangen. And then while I was there, we got deployed. We got called up and deployed down to the desert. So I went to Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Yeah. Then came back, and then I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And while I was at Fort Sill, we did some mini tours down to Fort Hood, Texas. And then I came back to Indiana, was assigned at Camp Atterbury, and I finished up there.
Awesome. So how many years in total did you serve?
10 years in total. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And a quick side note, when it was 30 years for Desert Storm, I interviewed you, and we have a story on that on the blog. So I will link that in the show notes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Cause that was a really cool story. So that goes into a lot more of the details. So we probably don't have time to share all that, but I'll link that. So if people want to learn more about your time in those, several days. So
awesome.
Yeah, of course. So whenever you got out of the military, what was that transition like from military life to civilian life?
It was huge. It was difficult.
Yeah.
I will say it that way. And I don't think anybody would say anything different.
Yeah.
Time in the Army, and I would say is probably true for other branches of the service. Everything's focused. You have a discipline. There's a regiment, and you know kind of what you're doing. There's a certain language that goes with everything that you do. And you know how those skill sets translate in everything within the service.
Yeah.
Leaving the service and coming into the civilian sector, I had to learn a whole new language.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to translate my skills into a language that civilians would be able to understand. And that took some time to do, but I was very grateful. My first boss off active duty at Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield happened to be a vet himself.
Oh, nice.
So
that worked out.
That worked out really well.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah. And how long have you now been on HVAF's board of directors?
15 years.
Wow. Okay. How did you first hear about HVAF?
I was recruited by a board member, a gentleman by the name of David Mann, who's a Navy guy. And he said, hey, listen, we need another business guy on the board. And when he recruited me to come onto the board, I found out that most of the board were a bunch of attorneys. And I thought, yeah, we need a business guy on the board.
Yeah.
So it was a different agency at the time. We had just moved into this building, I think 6 months prior.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I kind of felt like a newbie all the way around when I walked in.
Yeah. So now being, involved in the organization for 15 years, there's been, a lot of change. How has that been to see us change and grow?
I think it's been exciting for me, because when I walked in the door, they asked me to take a look at the agency and say, okay, what's your vision? How do you think this works? Because I work in healthcare. I have for the last 25 plus years. And I just said, hey, one thing that I really wanted to see was that we would expand our donor base, because we were almost 100% VA funded. And also take a look at how do we do a better job with our staff and et cetera. And we really needed to find a way to do a better job of tackling the homelessness. There were quite a few. We were over 1,000 veterans homeless on the street when I first joined. Yeah. And, we've cut that down quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, of course, exciting to see as well. And now that, you're into your second year as our board chair. And so what does that mean to you then to be able to be in that sort of just leadership position and being able to make that sort of difference for your fellow veterans in need?
First off, it's humbling. It really is. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with being the board chair. And, a great desire. I've always had a desire to help my fellow veterans. As a commissioned officer and a leader in the Army, the first thing that you always do is take care of soldiers. And now that I'm in this role, it's even bigger for me on the board is how can I help my fellow board members do a great job? And in turn, how can we really enable all of our staff to do a wonderful job to help our veterans?
Yeah.
And that's an honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, maybe someone who's listening, who is not a veteran themselves, who might not, have any, close relatives or friends that are veterans. What's something that is you as a veteran and now being involved with HVAF and knowing so many other veterans, what is something that you wish that they would know about veterans?
I think the number one, there's a variety of things, but as a veteran community, we love our country. I mean, so deeply, we love our country. I don't know a veteran that wouldn't raise his or her hand up and go back into a combat zone right now. I happen to be 57 and I've had my knee replaced. But if Uncle Sam said, "Hey, Arnie, we need you to go back," I'd do it. And it's because we feel it's an honor to be able to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. And, that's really who we are. We're grounded that way. I would say when you look at veterans, we're also a very disciplined bunch. And we still do some veteran speak, so you just got to be patient with us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Thank you, Arnie, for your service and for, continuing to serve fellow veterans through this role and for coming on Roger That today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much, Lauren. Really appreciate it.
I am joined by Navy veteran and HVAF board member, Ginger Barnes. Ginger, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. So thank you so much for coming on and wanting to share more about, your story and, time in the military, and then also, how you give back to veterans through serving on HVAF's board. So first, we'll go back to, I guess the beginning, when you first enlisted in the military, why did you want to serve?
Sure. So I wish it was a more valiant story than it is, but I went to IU for my undergrad. I graduated in 2006, and I really didn't have a lot of direction or vision of what was, what I wanted to do. At that time, I had moved back home to northern Indiana. My brother had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and we lived together for a little while, and so both of us were sort of reacclimating and figuring out what was next, and I was having a hard time, and he suggested looking into the military. And with one condition, he said, you can't join the Marine Corps or the Army. So I went to the Air Force and the Navy recruiting offices and ended up liking what I heard with the Navy and joined in 2007.
Yeah, awesome. How long did you serve?
Almost 10 years.
Okay.
9 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And, anything else you want to share about that? Where you went, what you did?
Sure. So I started out on a ship as a navigation and operations, but about halfway through my time, I transitioned to be a Navy substance abuse counselor, and went on to get my master's in marriage and family therapy. And so that's another connection that I have to HVAF, is just that there's a real, I'm passionate about mental health, and I'm passionate about substance use, and HVAF really is in the trenches in the Indianapolis community working on all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, what was that transition then like once you got out of the military, transitioning from military to that civilian life again?
It's interesting for me because, everyone's transition is different. For me, it felt like I was working as a civilian while I was in the Navy because I was a counselor, and it was very, office work and things like that. And when I moved back here, I transitioned right into counseling in the civilian sector as well. So I wouldn't say that it was that much of a transition career-wise. I think that I struggled. I think that it's a common struggle with folks getting out is, you lose a little bit of the ability to be direct. I'll use the word direct in work and at home, and telling it the way it is doesn't always fly and things like that. And so I would say that was a personality transition for me of just kind of having to dial back and understand, the way we talked to each other in the military doesn't work in the civilian world
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, it's been a couple years since you've gotten out. I guess what is life like for you now?
Great. I work for Hotel Tango Distillery, who has been one of the original partners in Operation Alpha, and so I'm very proud of our connection to that cause. I have a pretty quiet life. I have 3 nieces who I love and get to see a lot of, but yeah, I think transition for me has not been difficult, and I'm lucky in that, because a lot of people can't say that. It is much harder for many people, and sometimes people have an easy transition out of the military and they don't find struggle until later in life. And I think I'm proud that HVAF can capture those folks as well, because it's not just about the minute you get out of the military that people need help. That's a common misconception. A lot of times it's 10, 20 years down the road when hardships fall, or you lose your support system, and having someone to lean on, or an organization to lean on anytime is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I interview our veterans, that's something I've seen, is a lot of times it's years after they get out, and then sometimes they even come to us multiple times. And so, yeah, it's awesome that we can be there for them multiple times, and whenever it is in their life. So yeah, that's cool. So yeah, I know, we've connected with you, through Hotel Tango and everything. It's, kind of how you heard about us and support us. But yeah, is there anything else you want to share about maybe like why you wanted to join our board of directors?
I mean, I think it was just all of the things that I kind of already said, which is I have background in mental health. I knew of HVAF. I came to Operation Alpha's long before I was on the board. And then a couple of years ago, I was approached to take a seat on the board. And then this past year, I was approached to take the secretary position. And it's just incredible. I'll never say no to being able to help with HVAF, because it is a real miracle cause in Indianapolis. And, I worked at a similar facility in San Diego as an intern when I was in grad school. And, we don't see as many veterans maybe as a city like, Los Angeles or Chicago, but any veteran needs help.
Yeah.
If there's a veteran out there that's struggling, I want to make sure that I'm helping facilitate help and assistance for that veteran, and I can do that on the board.
Yeah. So yeah, is there anything you want to share about what it means to you as a veteran yourself to be able to serve in this way on the board to help your fellow veterans?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's necessary. I wish it weren't necessary. I want to be around until it's not necessary anymore, to be able to serve veterans. Yeah.
What is something that, maybe someone who's not a veteran themselves, doesn't have family members or friends that are veterans, that, maybe it's a common misconception of a veteran that, you wish that they would know about veterans?
Sure. So I'll say not everyone maybe has a veteran in their direct vicinity, but everyone knows somebody in their family that struggles with employment or mental health. And I think that giving to Operation Alpha or being involved in a charity like this can help you bridge the gap. And maybe you can't help the person in your life, but you can help somebody, you can help a veteran with their struggles.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Ginger, for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
I am joined by HVAF board member Rick Penny. Rick, how are you today?
Lauren, I am doing great. How are you doing today?
Good. Have you been on a podcast before?
I have not.
Okay.
No, this will be my first one.
Awesome. Yes. Well, congrats. I'm glad you made it to ours.
It's on my bucket list, so this is good.
Awesome. Yeah. Because a lot of people I've been interviewing now, they say it's their first time, and right. I don't think I had been on a podcast before either. So now I'm trying to kind of get used to it. So it's been fun. But
you're doing a great job so far. Love listening to them. So thank you for doing this.
Oh yeah, of course. I appreciate. Glad we have at least one listener. No, but yeah. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Just love to hear about your experience in the military and We'll go from there. So first, what branch did you serve in?
I served in the Marine Corps.
Marine Corps. Okay. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah. How old were you when you first enlisted?
I was right out of high school.
Wow,
So
okay.
18 years old, and went in July of 79.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's smart going to Parris Island in the heat of the summer, but great experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you always want to serve? Is that something you grew up wanting to do?
It was interesting. My dad and two of my uncles served. They were both
Okay.
in World War II, believe it or
Okay.
not. And it was something always to consider. But also at the time, in 1979, the economy wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
I was not ready for college.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, boy, this would be a great opportunity to, kick off a couple things. So it was good.
Yeah.
It was a great experience for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And so where all did you go and what did you do?
Yeah. So as I entered the Marine Corps, went to boot camp in Parris Island. So once I was done there, I went to what they call A school. So it was advanced training.
Okay.
That was around aviation electronics, weapon systems,
Mm-hmm.
and served at a Marine Corps air station outside of Camp Lejeune. And
Okay.
we worked on attack helicopters, so the Cobra attack helicopter. So
Okay.
mine was avionics and weapon systems. So during that time, we deployed all over the place. We were gone more than we were home most of the
Mm-hmm.
times. But our biggest deployment was in 1982. We were in Beirut, Lebanon, as part of a international peacekeeping force, as the Israelis had kind of had it with the PLO during border skirmishes. And
Mm-hmm.
so they advanced all the way to Beirut and had the PLO trapped. So we did a lot of different operations around there, evacuating Americans. We ultimately evacuated the PLO out of Beirut as well. And then we set up a peacekeeping force at the airport and secured that area.
Nice. How many years did you serve?
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was that transition then like once you got out of the military, transitioning then from military life to civilian life?
Yeah, it's quite the change
Yeah.
because during the military, especially for someone going in enlisted, going in at 18, leaving at 22, you're given an immense amount of responsibility throughout your career. Even though it was only 4 years,
Yeah.
but at the rank of sergeant, I was leading Marines, responsible for a lot of technical activities as well. So then shifting a switch almost overnight, going into the civilian world can be a little bit unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a plan to go to college. Took a little bit time to get there, but then entering college as a 22-year-old freshman is also a
Right.
hurdle, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of out in there with a lot of 18, 19-year-olds that you don't have a lot in common with.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be a struggle. And I think we see that today with a lot of our veterans that we serve is that flipping that switch. And luckily I had a great support system. I moved to Indiana to go to Purdue. My sister was here and her husband were really my foundational support.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, I can see how you could really have some challenges transitioning into civilian life.
Yeah, for sure. So you went to Purdue and then, so you've been in Indiana since then?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So how, I guess then where has your career taken you now?
So it's interesting. I've transitioned into the medical field. So from the military into medical field.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You're still serving. I think that's
for
one
sure.
one thing. You're always focused on the mission, and our mission is taking care of caregivers and their patients. So I worked for Philips Healthcare. Started off working at Methodist Hospital in clinical engineering and did a lot of great work there and a lot of different roles within Philips Healthcare and their legacy company. So today I lead our strategic partnership team for North America. So it's a great opportunity to work with a lot of different health systems around the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you said, one thing, is similar to the military is that you're still, serving now. And so how else would you say that your military career has affected, who you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it gives you a great foundation to start from. I think you learn a lot about yourself, about what you can do. Also important aspect of teaming. And I think in any time you enter into any kind of a corporate role or even in your interpersonal communication, it's understanding how the team can be best served. So I think that's something that translates for almost all veterans, I would think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And now I know you've been on HVAF board directors for a while now. When did you first join?
I had to look it up.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think about that. It was December of 2017.
Okay.
2017. But before that, I was actually worked with Arnie Peterson a couple times. So his church group was supporting some of the veterans at the Warman property. So bring in meals, and I would go with him on occasion to meet the veterans, have dinner with them, and just understand just talk with them, understand what they're doing today, to help support them in that transition. What do they need? And I think the camaraderie of them being able to talk with another veteran was helpful. Yeah. And felt like, look, there's other people here that care. Right. And I was intrigued by that. And then just as the years kind of went by, Arnie asked me about interest in joining the board, and I did. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And why would you say that you wanted to join, and why you like still, serving on our board of directors? Yeah, it was interesting when I was first approached by Arnie. I wasn't quite sure, but then the more I thought about it, knowing that most of the veterans we serve are former enlisted, I'd say probably 99% of them were former enlisted, and we didn't have a lot of enlisted people on the board or former enlisted. So I thought I had a better connection to understand what that difference would be, because transitioning as an officer, completely different than transitioning to civilian life as an enlisted person. You have less of a safety net, if you will, from an education standpoint, probably an income standpoint, and just the some of the barriers that are there. So I thought I could probably bring that perspective to the board. Yeah. And what does it mean to you then as a veteran yourself to be able to serve your fellow veterans in this way? I think it helps me just stay grounded. I think it's important to understand that. And I think we all realize that our veterans are under-supported, but overrepresented in the homeless or at-risk category. And I think so much of that is, and I heard a comment actually on the podcast you had with Emmy. It was interesting hearing the stat she said about even active duty military have challenges with food insecurity. And I thought that's crazy. Yeah. And then again, people that are leaving or exiting the military now with high inflation, food costs, housing costs. Right. It's a slippery slope. It's so easy for people to fall into a challenging situation. Definitely. Yeah. What is this will be our last question. Something I like to ask everyone is what's something here where one of our listeners or viewers are if they're not a veteran themselves, they don't have someone, super close in their circle who's a veteran. What's something that you wish that people would know more about veterans? I think it's important to know that veterans come from all walks of life. Veterans come from all different races, ethnicities, and they come to it for different reasons. Some are to escape a situation, some are to called to serve. Others are looking for an opportunity to maybe put some money aside, take advantage of education later, all different reasons. But I think one of the most important things to know is that even with all the people that have served throughout the years and through the 20 years of our war on terror, the veterans still only make up 10% of the population, but still make up a disproportionate amount of our homeless population here in the state. So I think it's just important to remind people of that and help support those that served. And especially as we see more and more women that are being a higher percentage of serving, that we make sure we're taking care of all the population. So yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rick, for coming on and sharing your story with us. Well, thank you. This was great. Thanks for having me on. Of course. I am joined by HVAF board member Doug Hedrick. Doug, how are you today?
Great. Beautiful outside.
Yes.
So I was glad to be here, though, today. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah, we're glad that you can come on here and share a little bit more about, your time in the military, and then also, how you give back to your fellow veterans. So we'll get started. So first, when you enlisted in the Army, how old were you?
Well, let's see. I was 30. I was actually young 30s. Oh, okay. So I did a little differently. So technically, I got a direct commission. I was in graduate school, and at that point, I always knew I had an interest in the military. When I graduated, though, shortly after, I had a commission given to me. So it's called like a direct commission because I qualified based on my educational piece. So that was in 1998. Okay. So I was married, moved back to Indianapolis, and got my commission at that point. to begin my new career.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard of someone enlisting.
Yeah, it can be very confusing because technically I did not enlist. So enlisted would be someone that's going in ranks of like private, sergeant. So those folks that serve in the who are enlisted. I don't know how to explain that a little bit more clearer, but basically you're either an officer or you are go through the enlisted route.
Okay, yeah. So, when then you first joined the Army, then what were you doing?
So I've always been a chaplain.
Okay.
I came in as a chaplain, and I've been serving now for 24 years.
Okay, yeah. So where has that then journey led you? Like maybe where you've gone and what you've done with that?
It has been an amazing journey, to say the least. I've been all over this country, overseas. Spent quite a bit of time over in the Middle East as far as my overseas duties. I've been a lot of different type of units over the years. Most recently, I'm in a command position, as they call it, a command chaplain position, based out of Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so we have aviation assets all over the United States that we work with.
Okay. So when you are going out as chaplain, I guess, what exactly then does that mean? And how do you then best support the military?
Well, I would say there's some traditional aspects to it that most probably would think as a chaplain or a pastor or a minister, I guess, in the civilian side. But we have duties to provide religious services, or at least whether we're providing or help others make sure that they're getting access to that. So our main function by regulation, by law, is to ensure that all soldiers, male, female, all persuasions, have access to practice their religious faith. So we help ensure and protect that happens. Practically beyond that, whether we are providing services or providing counseling of various types, we do that a lot. We're also work closely with our commander to ensure that they're getting proper advisement on the morale and what's going on in the unit with soldiers' families. So we're really there to take care of the soldiers and their families and make sure that they are as healthy as possible, so that they are best prepared to do whatever kind of mission they're going to be going on.
Yeah. Do you maybe have like a favorite experience or story that's whenever you've gone out and served in this way?
Well, I think when you see your direct impact on soldiers who have either thought about it or who have actually attempted suicide and thankfully were unsuccessful with that. But just to have an impact with them after the fact and see them healed, to get healing and kind of get back on their feet, or to be on the front end of that and see them make a decision to not end their life, or to see marriages restored, to see families really struggling, and to see their families come back together in a more healthy way. And if you're giving advisement to the senior staff on the mission planning and making sure they're considering various religious aspects as that has impact on whatever mission they're doing overseas, and just to kind of see that play out and provide hopefully good counsel to them and getting good feedback on that. I mean, I could go on and on, but there's a lot of wonderful things that we get to do. It's not always easy. And just to be overseas with soldiers who have had some significant impact to their life, some soldiers who have died, and then being around soldiers to really help them kind of overcome the grief that they were going through is pretty powerful. Yeah,
this is such a unique role that you have in the military. So what does that mean to you to be able to serve as your fellow soldiers and veterans, in this way? Well,
I went to seminary, and usually the track you're on, you're going to become a professor, you're going to be a church pastor somewhere, you're going to maybe start a new church, you could go into some kind of counseling ministry, those various aspects. But when I was in school out in Virginia Beach, I've always had a passion to serve in the military. And, I was a college baseball player, and I didn't know how that was ultimately going to play out, if at all. My dad was in the Air Force. So bottom line is, when I was in seminary, something really came alive in me. And I started doing some volunteer work that helped some soldiers and families who were a part of that. And I just knew that I always had a bent toward patriotism, kind of that American spirit, love my country. And I decided that my calling was more specifically, uniquely toward the military families, the community at large.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, and you've been on HVAF's board of directors for a little bit now. How long have you been?
You know what, I was thinking about that the other day, actually. It's funny you mentioned that. I think at least 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, and why did you want to join our board?
Well, I really did because I knew I'd heard about the stories and impact that this organization was having with the homeless veteran community in around the central Indiana. And, you know, my calling and my life has been really to support and help families, military community. And I wanted to give back. I wanted to have a practical way to do that. I knew that HVAF was doing some really neat things to do that. And this is one of my ways to kind of get involved and make a direct impact.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to be able to make an even further impact in this way?
Well, as HVAF continues to expand and has hopefully more opportunities to impact on a larger scale, you know, as a board member, I get to help set direction and help shape what we do on a larger scale. And I think that there's a really unmet needs out there that we can help fill. And I'm excited to have a direct impact and making decisions that's going to do that. Yeah,
definitely. So the last question I always like to ask is, what is maybe something, you know, I don't know if this is like maybe a stereotype to break or, you know, anything, you know, something about a veteran that someone who is maybe not a veteran, what would you like for them to know?
There is a stereotype out there. There is perception at large.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has been really since after 9/11, there's been a lot of new organizations that have sprung up to help serve and take care of the military community. And a lot of them are doing great things. But there is, when you are out there and you're trying to raise funds, there's always that you present the significant or bad case, as bad as it can be. And I think a lot of veterans are perceived as broken. And, you know, in some cases, some are broken.
Yeah.
And for in some cases, very good reasons for what they've had to experience and go through. And they need help, and we need to all do that. I think it's our duty to do that. But most of them are exceptional people, exceptional leaders. They care about their families. They care about this country a lot. And they're willing to give up a lot to be able to, you know, serve and complete their mission. So I would just say most are not broken, and most are exceptionally healthy. And I can't tell you the number of quality people that I've met over the years. It's really been an honor and a blessing to be a part of that community.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug, for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up this episode of Roger That. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to Roger That on wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at HVAF of Indiana. And for even more stories on HVAF and the veterans that we serve, check out our blog on our website at hvaf.org. Thank you, and until no hero is homeless, we'll see you next time on Roger That, a podcast presented by HVAF of Indiana.